Well, hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets Quants. We have with us today an expert on the school that has the most selective MBA program in the world, Stanford Graduate School of Business. Our guest today is Heidi Hillis, who is an expert senior coach at Fortuna Admissions. And we're going to talk about the 3 things you need to know to get into the GSB. So, Heidi, go for it. What are the 3 things you need to know
I
to
wish
apply?
there were only 3 things, but I have tried to kind of limit it to 3 things, three pieces of advice that I would give to anybody applying. I think the first one is really to use the entire application. So many people come in really focused on that one essay, what means the most to you and why, and kind of get hung up if that's what the application is about, but it's actually so much more. In fact, I would say that Stanford has probably the most comprehensive of all the applications for business school. You have that essay, which is 600 words. There's Why Stanford, which is 400 words. And then you have 3 optional impact essays and a personal background essay. So if you put all those together, it's about 1,850 words, which is double what Harvard is asking. So you really have a lot of opportunity to talk about a lot of different things in the essays themselves. And then, of course, you have the resume and 2 recommendations and the application itself. So you really have to think about the application as a whole, as opposed to just focusing in on what's the best essay I can write for what means the most to you and why. And I really advise people to think about, it's almost like a work of art. It's you can have lots of different layers, lots of depth, lots of color, and you really want to use every part of the application to add that depth and color and texture. It really gives you that opportunity. So I think it's a really nice way to kind of think of the application to be able to bring a lot more to it than just focusing on an essay. So think about, what you're going to say, what your recommenders are going to talk about, how the resume fits into the whole picture, and use each piece to really add value as opposed to just repeating something that might be found elsewhere in the application.
So you want a multi-dimensional portrait of yourself so that no piece is redundant. Every piece adds value and every piece works in your favor.
That's exactly right. You could take, for example, one of your bullet points on your resume and use that as an optional impact essay and really kind of go into depth and think about not just what happened, but why it's important to you and why you think it's significant and what the impact was on you or to the other person or the other organization. So it's really taking a lot that you might find in other parts of the application, but adding information, adding depth. So I think that that's something that people don't necessarily think about when they first come into the process that is really important, is to kind of map out everything that you're going to be talking about and think about, what your whole story is and which parts of the application you want to use to tell that story.
One of the reasons why they may not think about all the different pieces is because of that iconic essay prompt, what matters most to you and why, which kind of fits into your second point that you're about to make about really highlighting your values and your leadership skills. I imagine that in that essay, that is an ideal place to do just that.
It can be. It really can be. It can be used in a lot of different ways. And I think that that's highlighting the values and your experiences is fine. Stanford has this very comprehensive idea of what leadership means. They ask your recommenders to rate you on a grid. There's 12 different qualities that they asked you to be rated on, and they have 5 different levels, each of those qualities. So they do have a really clear idea of what they're looking for in the application. And so part of what you need to do is really help them find it. So do that by bringing out the stories that highlight those leadership. And this is a kind of another tip that I would give, which is, show, don't tell. I think, a lot of people have heard this before, but it's really worth reemphasizing. I like to work with people who, applicants who we start out by just having a little bit of empathy for the readers of these applications. They read thousands, and it's really easy to kind of feel them all run together. I read every season, hundreds, and they do start to run together. So the way to really bring them to life is to tell stories and to show what you mean as opposed to telling. So if your message in that iconic essay, for example, is that, you're really passionate about the environment and you want to pursue a career that's going to help, address issues in climate change, don't tell them that, show them by telling the story of when you were a child and something happened, or something happened at work that really made you think about this. Really bring it to life through stories. And that's the same with working with your recommenders. So, working to prepare your recommenders to write a great recommendation is to really help them first you potentially identifying some stories that they might be able to remember and to tell that really highlight who you are as a leader. So, for example, a lot of people get really hung up on, oh, I haven't really had, I haven't led a big team, or I haven't closed a big deal. And sometimes, those can be really important things to talk about, but often they're things that everybody talks about. And there are things that sometimes it's hard to identify as a reader of, are you really going above and beyond what's required of you in your job? So it's really up to you to help your recommenders see that there are other things that might really draw out who you are as a leader. For example, I worked with someone who, we were talking about different deals that she had done, but they all kind of sounded the same to every other applicant. And so when we started to dig into it, she told me the story of, I said, well, when was a challenge that you really overcame at work? And she talked about how during the pandemic, everybody was really disconnected. And so she spent an entire weekend putting together a trivia game for their next meeting that really helped the team, build that kind of connection that they were missing. And that's the kind of detail, those kinds of stories, they seem really small at sometimes, but they actually can really draw out a quality of the applicant that doesn't come out elsewhere, and that really helps them to stand out.
Yeah, exactly. And your third point is one that we hear a lot, but I wonder what your take on it is. It's to be genuine and authentic, right?
Yeah, being genuine and authentic. I think that a lot of people will come into this really trying to, I don't want to say game the system but really trying to tell Stanford what they think Stanford wants to hear. And you'll hear people say a lot of times, well, I hear that Stanford really likes it when people talk about this, or they've told, a story about that. And I would just say, stop that to begin with, and really just think about the question and answer it genuinely for yourself. First of all, you might then start to polish it and think about different ways of coming at it and thinking of the stories that will highlight it. But it really isn't about doing what someone else has done and that has worked for someone else. Often that won't work for you. Every story and every person is unique. And that's something that Stanford is really looking for, is that unique story and that unique quality that they don't necessarily find in someone else. They're really constructing this incredibly diverse and incredibly talented team of people, 400 some people who are all come from a very different background, and they want to hear that unique kind of story from you. So first is, don't try to do what someone else has done. If you've read someone else's essay, or if you've read on the blog online or somewhere else that, oh, this worked for one person, don't assume that it would work for you. And then the second part is really to, it's very easy when you read some of these essays the first or second time, the first versions, there can be a lot of spin, it's like, this is I'm so great, I did this, I really love this. And, they're really looking to get below that. So I try to get people to really think about, if you tell a story, then kind of go to that next level, ask yourself, so what does that mean? What did I learn from that? How did I actually apply that to my next decision? How did it influence me to, make my next career move or not make that next career move? It's really trying to ask yourself the hard and deep questions to get to the bottom of why you are who you are, and what motivates you to kind of pursue a business degree at this point as well. So it's also being honest and being willing to kind of go to places that maybe are a little bit uncomfortable. So what are some challenges that you faced that you haven't necessarily overcome? What are you still working on? What failures have you had that have really taught you some tough lessons? They want to see people who are willing to kind of challenge themselves and not just kind of glide through life. They want people who are going to really make them themselves kind of face their demons in a way and do hard things, and they want to be able to see that through your application.
All great advice. Now, Heidi, obviously, you as a Stanford MBA alum surmounted the obstacles, got in, graduated, became successful. What was your secret?
Oh, that's a very difficult question. I think I applied a long time ago. The application was a bit different then. I think it's tough. It's really tough to get in. I'm not sure I would get in these days. The competition is incredible. I came from a very non-traditional background. So that was, I think, something that I was used to kind of to my advantage in the sense of that I wasn't, it can be a double-edged sword for someone from a non-traditional background. I was working in nonprofit, I was working abroad. And I think that that can go both ways. There's always the concern when you're non-traditional that that you can't do the work or that you won't fit in with the class. So part of the thing that you have to overcome is really to talk about, to make the case that you will fit in and that you can do the work, that you have the focus that's needed to kind of get through the program. But you can also rely on that as a strength. It's sometimes hard to stand out when you come from a kind of one of the more traditional paths, and that's also a challenge. But when you're non-traditional, you can actually stand out and show different kinds of experiences that will be, valued in the classroom, which is, again, coming back to that really unique class of 400 people who have really different experiences. They really want to see that in your application, that how you can be a really contributor to the class.
Great. Now, if someone wants a free consultation with a Fortuna coach, how do they get one?
Come to our website and sign up. We have lots of great coaches willing to talk to anybody who's looking to apply, give them kind of some feedback about the strength of their application and what they might do, and talk about how we might be able to help.
And you can do that at fortunaadmissions.com.
That's right. Thanks, John.
All right, Heidi, thank you so much for your advice. Great insights there on Stanford. Getting into Stanford GSB, 3 things you need to know. Heidi Hillis is a senior expert coach with Fortuna Admissions. And I'm John Byrne with Poets Quants. Thanks for watching.